Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. It looks like we've got people from across Europe and elsewhere, so that's pretty good. Today, we're talking about the technologies, challenges, and adoption roadmaps for SMEs in 2023. Now, before we start, I just want to introduce everybody. So first and foremost, Rory. Rory's a former management consultant, program manager, a project manager, board advisor, has done so much work for both corporates and SMEs, huge expertise, and I've actually worked with Rory over a number of years, so I can say from experience I've seen his work and what he does. So that's brilliant. Very glad to have you on board, Rory. Thank you. Thank you. If we move across to Brian, Brian runs his own digital consulting company. He has been head of development, been a CTO. He's been a software developer, so hands-on experience, which is really good. Of course, a technical project manager as well. He's got 15 years experience and has got some valuable opinions, insights, etc. So thank you for joining, Brian. And of course, our CEO and one of the founders, Karthik. Karthik founded Optisol over 14 years ago. We now have 5 global offices, 450 staff. We deal with both corporates and SMEs. Microsoft Dynamics 365 Power Platform are areas that we focus on, and additionally the cloud and open source. So history of delivering value. So a lot of expertise there, which is absolutely brilliant. And so I want to kick things off. We're going to try and keep this 35, 40 minutes. And there goes one of my phones, which should be on mute, but there we have it. So I just want to go straight in and talk, just have some general discussion points. And what we'll do after the half an hour is we'll move across and we'll ask for questions, do Q&A afterwards, and then we can take stuff offline if anybody wants to do that as well. So if we start off and perhaps ask the question to the panel, if you could just summarize what you think the outlook for SME might look like, particularly with some of these microeconomic and world affair things that are going on. What factors will impact the adoption of technology within the SME space? What do you think? Could I go media? Let's go to Karthik at the top. What do you think, Karthik?
Thanks, Mike. I think there are, to begin with, looking at, the macroeconomic factors, there are multiple factors to it, like, inflation, the issues that we have with, supply chain, talent availability, and multiple factors, associated with macroeconomic factors. But then to me, the most pressing factor that I could think of is more towards, the fear of slowing down rather than the actual slowdown, right? So there is going to be an elevated sentiments towards, trying to stay super cautious, right? I think, that is something that we could anticipate, things to happen this year, which makes the companies, slowing down some of their decisioning with regards to, some initiatives they want to be, part of or take. Now, I think, in my opinion, I think, the fear or the sentiments of, sentiments around, slowing down could play a major role.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Very interesting, actually. And across to you, Brian, sort of any further observations that you might have?
Well, to be honest, I can second Karthik's point there. I've seen this quite a bit already this year. We've had projects that have been in development, things that we've been looking to move forward over the past 6 to 8 months. We've got things to a position to actually start and kick off the projects. And it's that element of fear, it's that cautiousness in people as, oh, well, we don't really know what's coming around the corner. We don't know how the economy is going to evolve. We don't know whether or not our customers are still going to be there in 6 months' time to a year's time. So it's just taking those steps and making sure you've got a proper plan in place, making sure that you are aware of what's coming down the line, but still being proactive. The one thing I would always recommend is fear can cripple you. You've got to still be proactive with it. You've still got to be looking for opportunities. There are always ways that you can move forward, look at new initiatives, but don't let the fear just cripple you. Yeah, that's
okay. Yeah, wise words. Thank you. And across to you, Rory.
Yeah, well, I first of all echo everything that's just been said by Karthik and Brian. I think spot on. What I do these days is I kind of do a lot of research in the kind of what's above the macro, if that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of things happening at a very, very high level, which a lot of businesses are not aware of, mainly because they're focused on the day-to-day. And I think some of these macro things that are going on will have an effect. And I think people need to be aware of them in order to prepare for them. Things like the proposed central bank digital currency, the CBDC, and the cashless society, which is moving quite fast. That's going to have an impact on the financial markets and an impact on the finances of companies. There's also now a strong government move forward following the Americans of the impact of digital IDs, which is proposed for December this year coming up. And there's lots of other things that in a similar way are affecting the wider economic and political landscape, like the impact on home working of these new 15-minute cities, as they're called, around us. And even things like the impact of the ongoing Ukraine-Russian war. So these are all things that have an impact on our economy and on our politics that need to be factored into planning for the future.
And I suppose when you look at that, there's also the economic growth rate. You know, obviously that's going to have impact, as well as some particularly some countries and certain regions in countries are having some challenges with the unemployment rate as well. So who knows how that would actually balance things up.
Yeah, I think the main one to focus on at the moment is the impact of the digital currencies. That's going to hit very hard.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I think you were about to say something.
I was, but I'm conscious of time, so I think we can move on. So okay.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about given the macroeconomic outlook. How do you think SMEs align towards their IT priorities in 2023? And Brian, I don't know if you want to start with that, or Rory.
Yeah, I'll take it on. So again, priorities for me. The one thing I find walking into a business for a first time or meeting customers for a first time, I always have this plan. I always have the same questions that I tend to ask. And one of the things that always gets brought up is security. And it terrifies me how little people actually really consider, SMEs consider security. It's almost this air of we're only small, nobody's going to be worried about us. Actually, that can be further from the case, and it's really quite scary how the increasing number of malware attacks. Obviously, trying to keep up with cybersecurity regulations, privacy laws are constantly changing and evolving, and it's just this massive area that I find with a lot of SMEs that we just go, oh, we're small, we're okay, nobody's bothered with us, and actually, it's really quite scary out there. So again, that's something that I think all SMEs need to be more aware of moving forward.
No, absolutely. And across to you, Rory.
Yeah, I think those things are top of the list that Brian's just mentioned: cybersecurity and protecting the business. One thing I've got a long list of things that are relevant, but I think the one that sticks out for me is in my capacity as a management consultant, and I was trained as a problem solver, going into lots and lots of big companies with masses of data. I used to get called in because they had problems, and my kind of job was to get to the root of the problem. And what I found time and time again in all different sizes of companies is that in terms of a data management system, the guy who wants to bring that into the company is often the person who sits down with a developer and designs the whole thing and has it built to his particular spec, launches it on the company, and then the staff in all the departments, sometimes with poor training, are all trying to get their heads around it and struggling. And I think, Mike, certainly you and I and some of our projects have seen this, where there's been a very complex or detailed management system that the top management love, but the staff working with it day to day are really struggling. And I think it has to be more of a joint exercise when these things are developed from the start. That's very important.
Okay, no, and again, valid and absolutely right. I mean, we've seen that in large companies and indeed small companies as well, which is, so much is available now to a smaller company, and things have changed over the years. Karthik, would you add some insights there as well, please, from your side?
I would say probably the cloud will still be in their priorities, because given the advantage that it can provide to the SMEs, especially around the cost, and also with regards to the data, the amount of data that is being generated in businesses, where cloud will allow you to leverage to ingest these data real time and create some actionable insights. I think cloud will continue to stay in their priority list, in my understanding.
Somewhere, I've got no idea where that's coming from, but let's continue on. Thank you for that, Karthik, by the way. And again, perhaps a quick opinion from the panel. What do you think will come in the way for SMEs while they try to adopt these IT priorities?
Is it to me, Mike?
It's to everyone, in fact. So, let me repeat that. So what do you think will come in the way for SMEs while they try to adopt these IT priorities? Rory, you've already mentioned, well, both you and Brian have mentioned cybersecurity. I don't know if you've got any further thoughts on that, because it's really important. I mean, here in the UK, we know that sort of as SMEs, we can go for Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus as a certification, but there's so much more to, just ticking a few boxes where it comes to security. Rory, you're actually on mute at the moment. Oh, let's have a look.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, it's just come up unmute. Yeah, I think the cybersecurity thing is moved really center stage in the last few months. And I know from firsthand experience, I've seen some of the adverts going out to train more and more, probably young people in cybersecurity. Karthik just mentioned the importance of the cloud moving forward. And I think one of the advantages in moving data management systems and cybersecurity into the cloud is it's more seamless, and it's a better way of integrating different technologies together than perhaps other options. But I think things like data security and cybersecurity have really kind of moved up the league table to the top. And it can be very costly and very difficult for a lot of SMEs to deal with, but it can't be ignored. It has to really be tackled, and people need to do some research on what's on the market, what's available, and how it would integrate with the systems they're already running.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Karthik, any thoughts on your side?
Oh yeah, definitely, Mike. Apart from whatever we just discussed, I think one of the major challenge that all the companies or SMEs will have is the kind of integration challenges they will have. What I mean by integration challenge here is that if you look at the majority of the digital initiatives, right, that goes around, right, they are taken either during pandemic or post-pandemic in terms of creating or figuring out newer ways of working, right? Either in terms of modernizing their workforces or figuring out new ways of engaging with their marketplace or the customers, right? So the point here is that at some point of time these digital systems need to operate either within their existing IT landscape if they have one, or it needs to go along with their existing processes, because there needs to be a bit of reorientation that needs to happen when they try to tweak the existing processes, right? So there's a bit of adjustments that are required, right? So it also boils down to the cultural aspect, right? You also need to have your staffs, who are ready to embrace these digital changes that are happening. So the main challenge that I would see is in terms of the preparedness of the organizations in terms of the changes they need to embrace, both at mindset level and at the skill set level, right? So that is something that that kind of integration is something that you would need to embrace while we go ahead with this all these digital initiatives.
Okay, no, and again, it makes makes total sense, certainly to me, hopefully to everyone else.